Jim, good morning, sir. How are you? How's everything in Stark Vegas?
It's doing good. We've switched and moved away from summer into the fall, and town is abuzz again, and people's thoughts turn to football.
I have a question for you. Much like the insurance commissioner, the question is, in homes across America where there is an economist in the family, man or woman, do they let them do the books and pay the bills, or is the economist kept away from the family business?
I think in some cases, economists are great at theory, but they can't add.
You are absolutely right. Okay, I did reboot this.
But some of them can, and some of them you can't trust with real money.
Yeah. Are you on a speakerphone, or are you okay there? It just sounds like it's coming through a cave or something for a second or two. Are you on?
I've got a headset on.
Okay. Let's do this.
I may have some reverb off my speakers.
I did reboot this, so I do have that information now. I sometimes wish we could do this to the Democrat Party. If you just pull the plug and reboot the Democrat Party, I don't think it looked the same when the electricity came back. But I may be disappointed in that. We were talking about this a little earlier in the last half, but it has to do with the economy. Hacienda Community Development Corporation, that's the name of this group. Hacienda Community Development Corporation. They are participating in a taxpayer-funded $30,000 down payment assistance program that provides money to undocumented immigrants to buy homes in Oregon. To me, that would be a slap in the face to every single citizen, native-born and legal, who came through the right process. And it was with Jim Varney yesterday.
A taxpayer-funded group is offering $30,000 to new home buyers. You cannot apply if you're an American citizen. What's with that?
It's wild. The group is called Hacienda Community Development Corporation. They offer payment assistance in Oregon to DACA recipients, asylees, green card holders, basically any non-U.S. citizen. This is state-sponsored discrimination, Stuart. That's what it is. That's their goal. Part of me wants to say crazy things happen in Oregon, but I think this will go far beyond Oregon. There is a critical shortage of houses across the United States, particularly in Oregon, and then they're giving $30K to non-taxpayers.
Which will raise the price of houses.
For everybody else.
Which is crazy, but you've heard of this, Jim. Also, investment giants like BlackRock, they're buying large percentages of these homes for sale, and they're renting them out or increasing the price on the sales, like Nashville and Atlanta, and apparently in Oregon also. So what happens at the end of the day? They're going to be on the money of this. They've got to control the market, and they've got a direct pipeline into the Harris-Biden administration for that funding.
And several things will probably happen.
Yeah,
it will probably raise the prices of houses as a general statement. Two, I kind of look, you were talking about that, I think you used the word slap in the face. I kind of think about this is no different than the student loan forgiveness. Wait a minute, I paid my bills, and Paul gets bailed out. And this is no different. Heck, I would have liked $30,000 for a down payment. Or any down payment assistance. It's kind of interesting.
Yeah.
This may be one of these throwaway lines, because Bush 41 proposed a modest $5,000 tax credit, but at least it wasn't targeted like that. So hopefully it's just a throwaway line, and maybe the answer is if Oregon wants to screw up their housing market, let them.
Yeah. Is there any
my wife would love a $30,000 down payment assistance to help her industry.
I think anybody would, as a matter of fact. Any conversation going on as far as the price controls within the confines of the meeting and the gathering of economists? Because I did pull this one up, and I want you to hear this before we continue.
It must be a Lulu.
Well, it's one that you have heard probably more than once. As far as price controls, and you'll recognize the guy speaking.
I always say that if you want to analyze wage and price control, the simplest analogy that brings it home is to think of a kettle on your stove in which there's water, and the water is boiling. It's got a cover on it. The boiling water is threatening to throw the cover off. Now, obvious, sensible thing to do is to turn down the heat under the kettle. Another thing you can do is to take a brick and put it on top of the kettle. And at the same time, turn up the heat. That is precisely what President Nixon did in 1971 when he simultaneously put a brick on top of the kettle by freezing prices and wages, and at the same time launched on a more expansive monetary and fiscal policy which turned up the heat under the kettle. And what happened? The lid of the kettle blew up. You held it down for a little while, and then you had a 12%, 13% inflation. That has been the experience every time, not simply over the last 20, 30 years, but for 2,000 years. Emperor Diocletian tried the same thing in Rome 2,000 years ago with identically the same results. So I have nothing but a negative opinion about wage and price control.
Jim, when she mentioned this, she repeated 4 times within 60 seconds ROI, rate of return. And I think she just figured that one out and wanted to use it like a kid or something. But your thoughts on this?
Well, we all do that, but you played Milton Friedman, I guess the godfather of modern market economics, and the Kello analogy is as good as anything. And what he's trying to say there is willing buyers and willing sellers will always find a way to get together. And if you try to impede that, weird things happen. Many of our listeners probably remember 73, 74 and the gas lines. That was because of the wage and price controls on gasoline. And in March of 74, Nixon signed a piece of paper. Guess what? Problem was over. World War II, they tried price controls. And what's kind of interesting about that is you couldn't raise the price to get labor when it was definitely short. So Kaiser, who was the shipbuilder, said, I'm going to offer health care because that's not regulated. And that's how we got health care insurance and all the things that go with it. So, but as Milton Friedman was pointing out, markets going to try to do whatever they want to go do. And if you fight them, it's kind of, and this line I use in class, you can fight the laws of supply and demand, and you'll be about as successful as fighting the law of gravity.
Yeah. I said ROI is a return on investment, rate of return. Yeah. Here's the other one that I mentioned a little bit earlier also, and some people thought I was joking about this. I'm not joking. She basically is talking about her and Tampon Tim, by the way, proposed a plan to put 20% sales tax on all golf-related purchases, including rounds and clubs and balls, and 20% sales tax. Because I guess she thinks, they're the real, everybody who plays golf is a millionaire.
Well, it's kind of like
that's the thought process.
Do you remember the tax on yachts about 30 years ago?
Yes, I do. Yeah.
And all it really achieved was putting yacht builders out of business.
That's it. I read a great story on that one, Jim. It was several years ago when it trickled down. The guy who buys the billion-dollar yacht or the several $100 million yacht is the guy who's building that. And the builders, the executives in there buy a smaller yacht. And then it goes down to the guys on the ground. They're buying a fishing yacht or, a saltwater fishing boat. Yeah. And then the guy at the service station nearby where all the business is, he's buying himself a new little aluminum boat, and it's a kid who's working there. And it just trickles all the way down.
Yes.
So when you see somebody buying a billion-dollar boat, you think, first of all, not envy, just figure how many jobs it's creating.
And not only that, as part of it, at least the way my mind works, I want to figure out what I need to do to get one.
It's a very good point. It's a very good point.
And that made me like doing your homework.
People don't understand. Like, for instance, the thing that worries me the most is the food supply in this country. Because we're not that far separated by time when we had these things called supply chain problems. The first thing we saw was toilet paper in shortage. Everybody making a run on toilet paper. I think we kind of forget that and we become numb to it just after a few months. But these things can happen within a 24-hour period, more now than ever before, with the magic of digital communication and everything. All of a sudden, there's a rumor goes out there, and there's nothing on the shelves. When you start looking at the major supermarket chains, all operating on what? 1.4% profit. Man, that's fragile, to say the least.
Yeah.
And when they hear somebody like the possible president of the United States of America saying that we want to impose price controls because some companies out there are price gauging. This is what she said, by the way. They are price gauging. She didn't even say gouging.
Well, I don't know what price gauging is. I do know what price gouging is.
I don't think she is.
But if you got 1.4% margin, you're not very good at it.
Well, that's gauging your gouging.
You're doing gauging.
Here. I do want to let me play this one from Fox and John Assman.
You know, she's got gall to call young people stupid when she and her advisors don't understand the most basic aspect about business. She knows nothing about business. Price controls always cause shortages. Why? Because of the fact that businesses can't afford to produce unless they make a profit. The profit is minuscule of grocery companies. You think of farmers, you think of people who really put their heart and soul into their work, and even the big guys. I mean, they have a very small 1.6% profit margin compared to Apple, which has like 30%, et cetera. The bottom line is she's forgetting that rising prices don't cause inflation. They are the result of inflation. And therefore, when you throw in price controls, all you get are shortages and repressed inflation, which pops up like a monster after you release it.
There are some people who still say that the supply chain, when we have them on, has not been fully back where it was. If she decided to do this, certainly in the first quarter of the first administration, it's a little bit scary to understand what would happen. Your thoughts?
Yep. Well, I think the point about prices, we usually think it's what you got to pay for stuff, which is part, but it coordinates a whole bit different. Because Paul says he likes Mississippi State labeled beer, and all of a sudden, because Paul's willing to pay for it, people go do it. People make decisions, and the supply chain works on all that sort of stuff. And whoever your commentator was pointing out, if you look at the example in the 70s, they had what was called creeping inflation, 2%, 3%, and everybody was freaking out. That a few years later, you got 10. Part of it was you took, as Milton Friedman said, you took the brick off, and what would you expect? And then let's don't forget the role of the Fed. So all eyes should be on what Powell has to say today in Jackson Hole and the meeting next week. Because inflation, as Milton said, always and anywhere a monetary phenomenon. And short answer, if you print a lot of money, you're going to get inflation. And the other thing to think about the price controls is you don't have a shortage. That means you're going to wait in line, or you'll give the black market something to go do, and people who really want something will go get it. The ultimate price control, think of Prohibition about 100 years ago.
Well, the other thing that scares me about this is that's generating chaos in America. And if you have an administration who is either stupid and corrupt or both, they can take advantage of anything from the martial law to anything else. You got it? Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Give me a test, 1, 2, 3.
1, 2, 3.
Take that headset that you were wearing, take it back to Fisher Price.
I'm taking to Amazon, but okay.
Or Temu. Take it back to Temu. It may be contaminated one way or the other. Thank you, sir. That sounds a lot better. Speak to this as far as the job numbers and what your thoughts are on the job numbers. They for people who don't know, it was another lie from the Tim Walsh, Tampon Tim, and Kamala Harris, and everybody else out there on the Democrat side. Much like massaging the numbers on Joe and Hunter's income, Kamala Harris, Joe Biden massaged bad numbers to make them look good. They've been doing that for a while. We've learned the Bureau of Labor Statistics is revising the job numbers down. what was it, 800,000? I forgot what it was. You know how much time CBS gave to this? 0 minutes.
Yeah.
NBC gave 0 minutes to this story. It is a major story. ABC News dedicated 20 seconds to the story. That is the art of disinformation in this country, and people ought to be worried about it.
Well, yeah, you're and maybe the whole price controls on groceries is look at the shiny thing. Because, okay, that revision suggests maybe the economy was not as robust as we thought it was. And the revision process takes place all the time. And maybe we are heading to that recession, because we kind of do. Not that I like recessions, but we kind of do. And that's why the Fed they haven't really finished the job on inflation, but they don't want to kill the golden goose at the same time. So, don't know whether 800,000 sounds like a big number, but the labor force is 100 million plus, but it's still material.
Yeah.